Today we're going to tackle a word you've definitely heard, maybe even used, but might not fully understand: veganism. It gets boiled down to what you can or can't eat, right? But that's really just scratching the surface. So let's dive in. We're going to explore the philosophy at its core, and then trace its impact outwards, to our planet, to our health, and even to our society as a whole.
All right, first up, the ethical core. Because honestly, before we can even begin to talk about food or the environment, we have to get our heads around the fundamental question that started this whole conversation in the first place.
This is it, the official definition from the Vegan Society, the folks who actually coined the term way back in 1944. And the keywords here really tell the story: philosophy, exploitation, cruelty. See, it's not a diet book, it's a moral framework. And you gotta notice this crucial little phrase, as far as is possible and practicable. It's an admission that this is about reducing harm in a really complex world, not about achieving some kind of impossible purity.
You know, this idea has really deep roots. I mean, way back in 1789, the philosopher Jeremy Bentham dropped this bombshell of a question. He basically argued that the thing that matters, morally speaking, isn't how smart an animal is, but whether it can feel pain, whether it can suffer. That one question just completely reframes our entire relationship with other animals.
So fast forward a couple of centuries, and the philosopher Peter Singer picks up this idea and gives it a name: speciesism. He argued that ignoring an animal's suffering just because it isn't human is a form of prejudice, kind of like racism or sexism. It's this built-in bias that says our species' interests always automatically trump theirs.
And then another philosopher, Regan, took it even one step further. He argued that animals are a subject of a life. What does that mean? It means they have their own experiences, their own desires, their own inherent value that has absolutely nothing to do with what they can do for us.
Okay, so from that very personal ethical core, let's zoom out, way out, to the biggest scale imaginable, the planet itself. What is the actual environmental price tag of our current food system?
The scale here is just hard to wrap your head around. Animal agriculture uses a truly staggering amount of our planet's land. But here's the kicker. For all that space it takes up, it's incredibly inefficient at actually producing the calories that we need to feed ourselves. This chart, which comes from a massive study out of the University of Oxford, just makes it crystal clear. It shows that even the most sustainable, lowest impact animal products you can find, well, they still cause way more environmental damage than their plant-based alternatives. We're talking emissions, land use, water pollution. The difference isn't even close. It's a chasm. And all of that data leads to this pretty powerful conclusion from the lead researcher of that study, Joseph Poore. He says that for an individual person, going vegan is likely the single biggest thing you can do to slash your environmental footprint. Yeah, even more than getting rid of your car or cutting back on flights. Okay, so we've talked philosophy and we've talked planetary health. Now let's bring it right back home to our own bodies. What does the science actually say about the human health equation?
The scientific evidence here is pretty compelling. We've got decades of research linking well-planned plant-based diets with a significantly lower risk for some of our biggest killers. Things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and even certain types of cancer.
And listen, this is not a fringe opinion. This is a direct quote from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, the biggest organization of nutrition professionals in the world. They state very clearly that a well-planned vegan diet isn't just safe for everybody, but it can actively provide health benefits.
Now, that phrase, appropriately planned, that's the key. It's not some magic bullet. A diet of soda and French fries is technically vegan, but nobody would call it healthy. The main thing you have to be aware of is vitamin B12. Plants just don't make it. So a reliable source, either from fortified foods or a simple supplement, is absolutely essential.
Okay, let's widen our lens one more time, because beyond our own personal ethics, the planet, and even our own health, there is a societal impact of animal agriculture that frankly often goes completely unseen.
This is a stark one. Research shows that about half, 50%, of all new zoonotic diseases, that's diseases that jump from animals to humans, that have emerged since 1940 are linked to making agriculture more and more intense. When you cram huge numbers of animals together, you basically create the perfect breeding ground for new viruses. And the human cost isn't just about disease risk. Slaughterhouse work has some of the highest rates of physical injury of any job, and it's been linked to severe psychological trauma, like PTSD.
At the same time, the people who live in rural communities near these massive factory farms often suffer from health problems caused by polluted air and water. It's a system that has a human cost at pretty much every level.
So, with all of this in mind, the ethics, the environment, the health impacts, what's the path forward? Let's talk about moving beyond our own individual plates and looking at some real systemic solutions.
And this brings us to a really crucial distinction: individual action versus systemic change. Look, choosing a veggie burger is a great first step, but relying on billions of people to have the willpower to make that choice every single time, that's just not a complete strategy. Real, lasting change comes from redesigning the whole system so that the sustainable, ethical choice becomes the easy choice for everyone.
So what does that actually look like? Well, on one hand, it's putting coordinated pressure on politicians and institutions to shift things like subsidies and policies. And on the other hand, it's about investing heavily in technology that could give us the best of both worlds. Innovations like cultivated meat that's grown from cells, or precision fermentation that can create animal-free proteins. These are technologies that could literally decouple meat from animal suffering and environmental disaster. Which leaves us with a final and pretty fascinating question to chew on. We've explored the deep ethical arguments and the staggering global impact of our food choices. But as we look to the future, the whole conversation is shifting. It might not be a question of personal sacrifice anymore, but one of technological innovation. Could we actually engineer a future where we can have our steak and save the planet too?